Rain tapped softly against the cafe windows as Nathan Cole sat across from a woman he barely understood. Nathan was a single father, tired but proud. At 34, life had already tested him in ways most people never experienced. His wife had passed away 3 years earlier. Since then, his entire world revolved around his 6-year-old daughter, Lily. Nathan worked as a night maintenance supervisor at a large technology company. It was quiet work, invisible work, but it paid the bills. Across the table sat Victoria Hale, the CEO of that very company. Elegant, intelligent, completely out of Nathan's league. Their meeting had been accidental. Earlier that evening, Victoria's car had broken down outside Nathan's apartment building. Nathan had offered to help. Now they sat drinking coffee like old friends. Victoria looked exhausted. Her normally perfect composure seemed cracked. Nathan noticed. "You look like someone who hasn't slept in weeks," he said gently. Victoria smiled fondly. "Running a billion-dollar company will do that." Nathan chuckled. "Well, if it gets too bad, you can always move into my tiny apartment. Free babysitting from my daughter included." He said it jokingly, just a harmless joke. Victoria stared at him. For a moment she didn't laugh. Then she finally smiled. "I might remember that." Nathan assumed the moment had passed. He had no idea that joke would completely change his life. The next morning, Nathan was making pancakes for Lily when his phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello," a familiar voice answered. "Nathan, it's Victoria." He nearly dropped the spatula. "The CEO?" "Yes, and I have a question." Nathan laughed nervously. "What kind of question?" There was a pause. Then she said something that made him freeze. "Were you serious about me moving in?" Nathan thought he had misheard. "You want to move into my apartment?" "Yes." Nathan stared at the tiny kitchen around him. Peeling paint, second-hand furniture, Lily coloring at the table. "Why would a billionaire CEO want to live here?" Victoria's voice grew quiet. "Because my life is falling apart." That evening Victoria arrived with only 2 small suitcases. Nathan expected security guards, assistants, a limousine. Instead, she showed up alone in a simple coat. Lily opened the door. Victoria froze. She wasn't used to children greeting her so warmly. "Hello," Nathan whispered. "You're really doing this?" Victoria nodded. "For a few weeks." Nathan scratched his head. "Well, my couch folds into a bed." Victoria looked around the small apartment. Something in her eyes softened. "It's perfect." But Nathan didn't know the real reason she was hiding. Someone powerful wanted to destroy her company. And Victoria suspected the threat was coming from inside her own executive board. Living with Nathan would keep her out of sight. For now. The next morning Nathan woke early. Victoria was already in the kitchen. She looked different, relaxed, human. She poured coffee. "Nathan, I need to ask you something." He nodded. "What is it?" Victoria looked directly at him. "If something happened to me, would you take care of Lily like your own daughter?" Nathan blinked. "That's a strange question." Victoria continued. "I'm serious." Nathan laughed awkwardly. "You're the CEO of a billion-dollar company. What could possibly happen to you?" Victoria didn't smile. "More than you think." Nathan suddenly realized this situation was much bigger than he had imagined. Later that week, Nathan accidentally discovered the truth. 2 black SUVs were parked outside the apartment building. Men in suits watched the entrance. Nathan confronted Victoria. "Are those your people?" She shook her head. "No." "Then whose are they?" Victoria hesitated. Then finally told him everything. Someone inside her company was trying to force her out. If she disappeared or made a mistake, they could take control. Nathan leaned against the wall. You're telling me corporate villains are stalking my apartment? Victoria gave a small smile. Basically, yes. Nathan sighed. Great. My daughter's school already thinks I'm weird. Victoria laughed for the first time in days. Days turned into weeks. Something strange happened. Victoria began enjoying normal life. Cooking dinner. Helping Lily with homework. Watching cartoons. Nathan noticed it too. You've never lived like this before, have you? Victoria shook her head. My life has always been boardrooms and contracts. Nathan grinned. Well, now you have pancake Saturdays.
Lily suddenly hugged Victoria.
You should stay forever.
Victoria froze.
Her heart wasn't used to moments like this, but something inside her whispered the same thought. Meanwhile, the company's board scheduled an emergency vote. If Victoria didn't appear in person, she could lose control of her own company. Nathan listened carefully. So they're forcing you to come out.
Victoria nodded.
It's a trap. Nathan thought for a moment, then smiled. Well, maybe they don't know who they're dealing with. Victoria raised an eyebrow. You have a plan? Nathan grinned. Let's just say, I'm not only a maintenance supervisor. Victoria stared at him. Who exactly are you, Nathan? Nathan shrugged. Someone who hates bullies. At the board meeting, executives laughed when Nathan walked in beside Victoria. Did you bring your babysitter? One man mocked. Nathan calmly placed a file on the table. Inside were documents exposing the real traitor in the company, the chairman. Nathan revealed something shocking. Before becoming a single dad, he had worked in corporate security investigations. He had spent weeks quietly gathering proof. The room fell silent. Victoria looked at him in disbelief. You did this for me? Nathan smiled slightly. You're living in my apartment. Least I could do. After the meeting, Victoria won. The corrupt chairman was removed. The company was saved. That night, Nathan expected Victoria to leave, but she stayed on the balcony. Nathan, remember your joke? He laughed. The one about moving in?
Victoria nodded.
It stopped being a joke a long time ago. Nathan's heart beat faster. Victoria looked at him seriously. Would you consider something permanent? Nathan blinked. Like a relationship?
Victoria smiled softly.
Like a family. Lily ran outside and grabbed both their hands. See? I told you. Nathan laughed. Sometimes the biggest life changes start with the smallest joke. The apartment was unusually quiet that evening. Lily had already fallen asleep after insisting that both Nathan and Victoria read her favorite bedtime story together. Now her small bedroom door was closed, and the soft glow of a nightlight leaked into the hallway. Nathan stood on the small balcony, leaning against the railing. The city lights flickered below. Behind him, the sliding door opened. Victoria stepped outside. She held 2 cups of tea. I figured coffee might keep us awake all night, she said with a soft smile. Nathan accepted the cup. Thanks. For a moment, neither of them spoke. So much had happened in just a few weeks. Corporate betrayal, secret investigations, a billion-dollar company nearly collapsing. And somehow, it had all led here. A tiny balcony above a quiet street. Victoria finally broke the silence. You didn't have to do what you did today. Nathan shrugged. I know. Then why did you? Nathan looked out over the city again. When my wife passed away, he said quietly, everyone told me life would move on.
Victoria listened carefully.
But it didn't, Nathan continued. For a long time it felt like the world just stopped. He took a slow breath. Then Lily needed me, so I kept going.
Victoria nodded slowly.
And when I saw what they were doing to you at the company, I recognized that feeling. What feeling? She asked softly. Being surrounded by people but completely alone. Victoria's eyes lowered. He wasn't wrong. Nathan turned toward her. You needed someone in your corner. Victoria's voice was almost a whisper. I'm not used to that. Nathan laughed quietly. Most CEOs aren't. For a moment they simply looked at each other. Then Victoria said something that surprised him. Nathan, can I ask you something personal? He raised an eyebrow. You're the CEO. You can ask anything. She shook her head slightly. Not as your CEO. Nathan waited. As Victoria. The way she said it made his heart beat a little faster. All right, he said. Ask.
Victoria hesitated.
It was strange. She negotiated billion-dollar deals without blinking. But asking this question felt harder than any boardroom decision. Finally, she spoke. Have you ever thought about dating again? Nathan froze. That question had been sitting quietly in the back of his mind for years. But hearing it out loud felt different. I've thought about it, he admitted. Victoria looked nervous. But, Nathan smiled faintly. But being a single dad changes everything. How? Because anyone I date isn't just meeting me, he said. They're meeting Lily too.
Victoria nodded slowly.
And that's a big responsibility. Exactly. Nathan looked at her carefully. Why are you asking? Victoria took a deep breath. Because the truth was simple and terrifying. I think I like you, Nathan. The words hung in the air. For the first time since Nathan had known her, the confident CEO looked unsure of herself. Nathan blinked. You like me?
Victoria laughed softly.
Yes, I know how ridiculous that sounds. A billionaire CEO liking a maintenance supervisor? Nathan rubbed the back of his neck. Well, when you say it like that. Victoria stepped a little closer. I'm serious. Nathan studied her expression. There was no arrogance in her eyes. No power. Just honesty. You've shown me a world I forgot existed, she said quietly. What world? Normal life. Nathan smiled. Pancake Saturdays?
Victoria laughed.
Yes, pancake Saturdays. They both fell silent again. Then Nathan said something unexpected. You know Lily already likes you. Victoria's eyes widened slightly. She told me that yesterday, Nathan added. Victoria looked shocked. What did she say? Nathan chuckled. She said, Dad. Victoria smiles like Mom used to. Victoria's eyes softened. That's a big compliment. Nathan nodded. The biggest. Victoria looked down at her teacup. Nathan, I'm not asking for anything complicated. The end.